Welcome to episode 22 of the Loane Hockey Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about a very important topic in regards to transition game and the importance of neutral zone emphasis. And we're going to be talking about neutral zone playmaking specifically and the importance of neutral zone play when it comes to creating offense and the structure it can provide in a team's offense and the efficiency it can provide in a team's transition game over time as well. And when we're talking about neutral zone playmaking, a big importance of neutral zone play is the ability to possess pucks and get off the wall with efficiency, and especially coming off and coming through exits where you want to get off the wall, you want to be able to drive the center lane, being able to have the toes angled interior, finding space, being able to have that mentality to get off the wall right away because getting off the wall, it's going to open up the most amount of optionality for that individual player and leading to that next sequence. It's really important for that player to be able to create sustainability. So being able to have possession of the puck is obviously really important as one thing, but when you really put emphasis on getting off the wall and put emphasis on that becomes even more potent and can generate a lot of quick strike transition sequences. And you look at the NHL nowadays, how efficient most of the teams, their transition games are. And a lot of what defense can be created out of, you can create defense to offense transition so easily nowadays and so effortlessly because there's so much more emphasis on speed, power, puck handling, and little area, small area components that go into player development. Also being able to manipulate one-on-one using deception, being able to shake guys loose, being able to create space and create optionality in many different ways. It could be a puck skill element, or it could be an element with hockey sense. It could be an element of skating. So there's a lot of different nuances in talking about neutral zone play and patterning where neutral zone playmaking is a factor in a lot of different situations and can create a lot of efficiency within a team's offense and their offensive structure over time. And when you look at the importance of neutral zone playmaking over time, and with neutral zone playmaking, one of the biggest things and one of the biggest components to it, especially inside that half wall area per se, inside the neutral zone, where it's that center line, that red line area, that's one of the harder places to try and get off the wall because there's so much more emphasis from opposing neutral zone forechecks to be able to close and try to kill those plays, especially if it's outside the dot lane in that sequence, because teams don't want to allow players to get off the wall and find middle ice, especially in neutral zone where a neutral zone trap or a neutral zone forecheck it could be a 1-2-2, a 1-3-1, whatever it may be, even a 2-1-2, depending on layers and the scenario. But more likely than not, you're not going to get a 2-1-2. You're getting a 1-2-2. It might get a 1-2-2 slightly more up front. But at the same time, whatever tactic may use when you're talking about trying to manipulate off that red line inside the neutral zone, that center line, it's really hard to try and get off the wall there. So if players are able to find space in that area is a really, really tough place to try and get out of. Even tougher than trying to get out of the half wall and defensive zone play or off the half wall in the offensive zone because when you're in the neutral zone, there's more emphasis and more gap closure from defenders. And defenders are more emphasized to try and hold that line area so that way they can try to angle or surf guys off, try to close the play and kill the play at the line. Ideally, that's what they want. And again, neutral zone forechecks, they're going to try and close on that situation as fast as possible to try and kill any sort of transition game and transition efficiency. So, in talking efficiency when coming on that side of the ice, the offensive side of the ice, past that red line, where teams are able to dump pucks in there and forecheck without the icing call. It's really important to try and get off the wall in those scenarios and try to not rely on dump ins all the time. The North American style dump ins, there's emphasis on forecheck, forecheck, forecheck. But when you're forechecking all the time, yes, it's good in a sense because you're trying to put pressure on, apply pressure, but you're losing the puck almost all the time. And the odds of you getting the puck back off a forecheck retrieval are very slim. And so trying to minimize how often you can actually dump that puck in and try to maintain possession is really key in the neutral zone game. And Colorado is a big team that is able to utilize it. And obviously they have one player in Nathan McKinnon who's the most efficient in terms of transition. And Kale McCarr is another one. Mikko Rantanen is actually really underrated when it comes to transition play, and also Valenchushkin as well in terms of their efficiency and how well they're able to link together exits to entries, but their efficiency as individual puck carriers and how they're able to translate that from the D zone to the neutral zone to the O zone and how effective they are at being able to link those three together and the pace at which they play at, the efficiency in their puck skill, their puck protection elements, the power in their skating, because all those players that I just mentioned, Makar, Rantanen, Nichushkin, McKinnon, they all have different elements, obviously, to their games and different nuances that make them so unique in their own ways. When you look at McKinnon, his game's more emphasized on power, Makar's too. Nichushkin and Rantanen, you're relying a little bit more on puck protection. There's power obviously in their games, but puck protection elements are more key and more relied upon, especially at their bigger sizes. You can get more power output, more skating output from players like Makar and McKinnon, which can leverage that inside the neutral zone because that can create transition efficiency in terms of trying to get off the wall, create space, find middle ice, find interior space in the neutral zone, and move on a diagonal to the point where McKinnon's able to create entries individually and transition individually. Because ideally, what you want less playmaking in the neutral zone. You want to be as efficient as possible. Ideally, one player could transition the puck from D zone to neutral zone to O zone. And simply put, when you have one player doing it, it's able to be more rational in a team's decision making in their O zone setup. It becomes much easier because you're relying on less players, simply put. And so another big thing when it comes to there's a lot of speed differential elements that tie back into this. And Nathan McKinnon and Makar are two really good examples of players who can create speed differentials inside the neutral zone. When they create speed differentials within their skating and their power output inside their skating, how they're able to generate speed and efficiency and how they're able to shake guys loose, it becomes almost effortless because the guys that they're matched up against, they aren't matching their speed. They don't have the ability to match that level of intensity that those two guys bring consistently. And it's rare you find players with, let alone the same level of mechanical base and foundation as Makar and McKinnon within their skating. So the speed differential factor, automatically it's going to add to the efficiency in terms of the neutral zone playmaking. Adding to the efficiency of that is going to layer inside not only the neutral zone, but the O zone as well. How they're able to create off the entry. They could be a line rush scenario. It could be an F4 situation where Makar is activating as that F4. It could be McKinnon doing it alone, whatever it may be. It could be a lot of different situations where speed differential has emphasis on the neutral zone playmaking, especially moving diagonally. If you can combine the two, that's a really deadly threat when talking about neutral zone play and patterning as well. And so the other big thing, and one of the more rational things in talking about neutral zone playmaking is the importance of exits and middle exits and being able to exit through the middle of the ice and being able to retain possession through the middle of the ice inside the neutral zone. Because if it's an outside the dot lane entry and players are skating through the dot lane, it's going to be much tougher in an exit sequence to not only try and get out of that zone on a slimmer margin in terms of space and timing and support and all those other options. At the same time, it's going to be trickier to do that inside the neutral zone as well because there's less emphasis in terms of space. There's more emphasis from the opposing teams in terms of neutral zone forechecks and D being more aggressive, especially nowadays. So when you look at that, the importance of center play and being able to have center ice in terms of neutral zone play and the neutral zone in and of itself, really important factor as well. And so we talked about exits to neutral zone, and we talked about the efficiency with center exits as well. But there's also some playmaking elements, especially in the neutral zone, where moving north is actually somewhat beneficial. And it doesn't happen all the time. From what I've noticed and from what I've tracked personally in terms of analytics, I've tracked some neutral zone data before, and I've firsthand seen that yes, there's some situations where moving north isn't going to be the most beneficial, but moving north with speed differential, with power, with skating, with basically combining a lot of different elements at one point. It can be offensive instincts, it could be combining hockey sense and timing to be able to rush the puck quickly up ice as quick as possible. But if you're moving north, there still has to be a deceptive translatable component, right? If you're using linear crossovers, good. That's one component that can be really fluid in terms of moving north inside the neutral zone. Another element is using deception in terms of puck touches and manipulating small area triangles within a defender's stick. So that way you're able to understand how to keep that pace moving north and manipulate around defenders that way and be able to maintain that element of fluidity within the structure and paradigm of not only the neutral zone play, but leading that to an entry as well. And so when you're talking about that and the emphasis that it has, ideally you'd want players to be moving laterally as much as often and with efficiency, with speed differential and hockey sense, offensive instincts, being able to utilize those components. Nathan McKinnon and Connor McDavid are the two perfect examples and two of the best. Not necessarily perfect because there's obviously still some things they can work on, but at the same time, two really good, really great examples in terms of being able to use that diagonal movement with speed differential, with hockey sense, with timing, offensive support, and layering in the offense and layering in structure in the neutral zone as well, depending on line rush scenarios. And so when talking about the movement of moving north in general and the importance of that. Moving north is more important when you're moving up the center of the ice. You want to be able to have the middle of the ice as much as possible. And so the last thing is ozone playmaking off the neutral zone patterning as well. And obviously, there's now a lot of emphasis on spacing timing on that initial entry. So that space between the blue line and the top of the faceoff circle, all that around and all that space around there is really important in terms of manipulation and creating deception and being able to leverage that space on the entry to be able to create the ozone setup and then potentially stretch out the defensive coverage that way as well. And so when creating neutral zone offense, you want to be able to create neutral zone offense and neutral zone plays that translate to the offensive zone right away in that sense as well. So there's a lot of key elements in talking about neutral zone plays and how they translate and how they're able to link together inside the offensive zone as well.